The Memphis Grizzlies are up. We are going to talk about what the Grizzlies need to do this summer in order to take that next leap forward as they hoped to do this season. The Grizzlies are in a really interesting space. I think in the offseason, they are many millions of dollars over the salary cap at this point, to where they are butting up against the second apron. I do not believe that they are anticipating to have their full mid-level exception. They will likely have the mini mid-level exception to be able to use. The core pieces moving forward: Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, all those guys locked up for multiple years. Marcus Smart, I would also consider a piece of the core for what it's worth. I know that like people considered, hey, should they move him at the deadline before he got hurt? All that stuff. I think that the Grizzlies think of Marcus Smart as like a really valuable piece to have between Ja, Jaren, and Desmond. They see him as like a guy who can do those things that like we just saw Men Thompson do. They like the idea of having him be able to guard 1 through 4, maybe even 1 through 5 in the playoffs. It's a guy that really makes sense for them. So like, yeah, maybe not like core under contract long term, but like a guy that I just cannot imagine that they like will get rid of this summer unless it's a crazy, crazy offer.
Yeah, no, it seems like somebody that they feel like is part of all of that and makes sense. Can take those tough defensive matchups, allow Ja and Bane to really focus on, offense. And then, between him and Jaren Jackson Jr., that's a really good start defensively. And I mean, I guess if you're going to start those 4 guys, then you just got to fill out that 5th spot. And, then what you're going to do off the bench to kind of build out your depth.
So there are 3 pieces of the Memphis offseason that are interesting, all kind of circling around one question for them, in my opinion. And that one question is, what is their long-term answer at center?
Yep.
Is it they think Jaren Jackson Jr. can close games at center and they only need like a Andre Drummond-ish kind of guy in free agency, or do they need to go out and like make a real impact move for like a big that is expensive, right? The 3 mechanisms like that they have with that really, I would say 3 mechanisms. They could use the Luke Kennard option. Luke Kennard has a $14.8 million team option for 2024-25. They absolutely will exercise that in some way, shape, or form. He's worth that money, and he's really valuable to them from a spacing perspective. It's just whether or not they exercise it, in my opinion, to trade it or not, or if they trade it before they have to exercise it, and then thus it gets exercised. The second option is the draft, right? They're going to be sitting at number 7 projected right now. They could move up the order. They could slide back a pick or 2. There is one name that makes a lot of sense for them, I think, in terms of the center position for the Grizzlies. There are a few other names that I think you could reasonably like trade down, try and accumulate more assets and get, but like they could just draft Donovan Clingan at the center position.
That's what we did in our most recent mock. Was we just took Clingan and slotted him in there.
And Donovan Clingan has been great for the last month of the season. He's finally, like we talked about this on the mock, he's finally like totally in shape, moving well again. I was talking to someone tonight, and what they brought up was like, he's just going to look better as an NBA player because he's too big for college, kind of. Like, he can't even like really extend his arms because like guys like come in and like dig around. So he's like kind of like stuck like this all the time because he's 7'2" with long arms and might be taller than 7'2". When I talked to him last year, he thought that he was like 7'3" in shoes even, right? Like, it's hard for him in that environment to get the most out of his size and length. I think he'd be fantastic with Memphis. You'd have like an incredible backline defender who could clean up things if he gets beat in drop. I think Clingan is a great screener. He's a great passer, great dribble handoff guy, finishes around the basket. Like I think that, even though tonight was a little bit rough finishing around the basket against San Diego State, he can finish around the rim. I feel quite confident he would be Honestly, I think that is the best option for them if he is available at their draft pick. I would just take him and rock with it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it just makes too much sense. I think it's one of those that I think that's going to be mocked a lot as we get into mock draft season, where everybody gets to the Grizzly, unless it gets up into like the 3, 4, 5. But I mean, even then, like at some point in this draft, it makes too much sense for what they need. I guess it depends a little bit how they feel about their wings, but or if they need some backcourt depth after Ja and Bane and Marcus Smart. But man, it's a cheap way to fill that void, Sam, that I personally think they need to fill at least for 24 minutes a night, probably, right? Like
Yeah.
at least. So,
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, even if you're at number 4, if you're them, does it not make more sense to take Donovan Clingan than like to do like Modus or to do like Ron Holland or these guys that like are questionable shooters more than anything, right? Because like with Ja Morant and with having Marcus Smart already, like if you're not taking a big who is going to shut down the paint and give you Jaren Jackson's like made them already a top 10 defense in what is like a catastrophic season for them. If you draft Clingan and he can play 20 minutes a night immediately day one in the NBA, you are the best defense in the league, I think. So that's like a total, advantage that they can hold. If you're not drafting that center position, it can't be a non-shooter, in my opinion, because you already have Smart. And you'd be giving up too much on the defensive end otherwise.
well, and like you have it in the youth right here. I'm not saying these guys are all better than some of these prospects, but like you have GG Jackson, who's shown like maybe you got to steal there with him. Vince Williams has done some nice things. Jake LaRavia is playing the best basketball of his NBA career as he's getting consistent minutes over the last couple weeks. Zaire, like you just have these names already where, I mean, you might as well trade a couple of these guys if you're going to draft Matas or Ron Holland or somebody like that. So in that sense, even though like I may not have him in that same tier right now, it kind of is one of those situations where I think I would break my own rule and just say like, hey, the Grizzlies, if they can get Clingan, just take Clingan and walk away and feel really good about it. Because again, on the contract you can get him for, are you going to get production for like what are the other avenues to realistically get somebody that seemingly fits as good as what Clingan fits into this? Because not just any center makes sense, Sam. Like not any center.
Like the name I've brought up is like Jared Allen would be like an incredible all-screen partner with Ja Morant.
Yeah.
If the Cavs like lose in the first round again and decide, okay, we have to break up the Evan Mobley, Jared Allen thing. And honestly, like the best pick they're probably going to get is that number 7 pick. And like you could do number 7 and Luke Kennard for Jared Allen. And you could probably move Luke Kennard for like a late first round pick, something in that ballpark. And you could get, the number 7 pick or whatever this pick ends up being, depending on how the lottery shakes out in this class. That's actually like a really competitive, like strong offer for somebody like him, in my opinion. There are other names that we could point to.
But they're not playing in free agency, right? Like, I mean,
no, they're not in free agency.
So it's like, it's not like
if it's free agency, it's mid-level or better.
Yeah. So it's not like you can go after Isaiah Hartenstein or something like that, right? Like that would be awesome, but they don't have the money to do it. They don't have the cap space to go play in free agency. So
yeah, not unless it's a sign and trade with Luke Kennard, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the only. And I think that Hartenstein's going to get too much money. I seriously think we're talking about Hartenstein as like a $20 million player now. Easy. He's been like, I think there is a non-zero chance. I don't know if he'll make it, but on my ballot, I would have Isaiah Hartenstein on the all defense team right now. He has been one of the 10 best defenders in the NBA this season. And it's not positions anymore. So like, if you want to list 8 centers or whatever, you can. Hartenstein has been absolutely one of the 10 best defensive players in the league this year.
He's awesome.
Yeah. So like, look, there are other bigs that you could like try and look around for, but we'll see what they decide to do at the end of the day. Do you try and do like a reunion with Jonas Valanciunas and do like Yeah, but they can't sign and trade because they'd be over the second apron at that point anyway, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, look, I think that by far the cleanest way to do this is using the 7th overall pick to go get either your veteran or to just get Clingan and just take Clingan at the end of the day. And if you do Clingan, you probably don't have to move Kennard as well, which is valuable for the Grizzlies moving forward.
In terms of
they get Brandon Clark back next season, really important piece of it. He's back now. He played recently. I have not watched the Grizzlies in like a week, so I didn't see how he played. But they have Gigi Jackson and Vince Williams to be able to take up some of those wing minutes now. After drafting 5 or 6 of those guys, David Roddy, Laravia Williams, Vince Williams, Gigi Jackson, etc. They hit on 2 of them where it feels like those guys are valuable moving forward. It's kind of like a simple equation for them. Like they really just need to find the answer at center, and they have multiple different kind of avenues to make it work.
Yeah, no, I mean, you get healthy, you put Clingan in there. Like we've seen rookie centers this season be super impactful. Like I'm not saying at all that he is Victor or Chet, like not even same archetype players, those, but we even saw what Derek Lively did in Dallas, right? For a long amount of time. And so again, different type of player, but a rookie center can come in, especially when you kind of have the defensive infrastructure around him and Jaren Jackson Jr. cleaning everything up and what Marcus Smart does. And then now your depth looks really good with Kennard and Marcus Smart playing as the, a backup and staggering if he does start. And then all of those guys, does Jackson have a leap? Vince Williams, Laravia, the guys we've mentioned, all of a sudden it looks like an interesting team. And at the end of the day, this team, their ceiling is determined by those 3 names at the top of the list, Sam. Like at the end of the day, how good they are and how competitive they are comes down to, does Ja get back to being Ja? I think Jaren's been awesome this year, quite frankly, like the defensive effort and then also the offensive usage to go with it. And then Desmond Bane as well. Those 3 guys decide your ceiling, but you add a center and these other guys and your floor and kind of rounding out around those 3 looks pretty decent.
Yep. 100% right. The last question I have is just like, do they have to duck the tax? And honestly, I think no. Like is my bet. Like Robert Pera is very wealthy. He's one of the wealthiest owners in the NBA. I am kind of assuming that as long as they have what they feel like is a real contender, Robert Pera will pay. I understand that there will be some hesitation there until it happens where he's willing to go deep into the tax, but I don't know. He's very wealthy and this team looks quite good moving forward. So I don't see a lot of reason to believe that they won't pay the tax, but that's just a guess on my part.